going through time. Here's the Puranic period too. Common area, and this I found, for me, I find it very intellectually interesting. You have the 6 darshanas, the 6 schools that really make up Hinduism, modern Hinduism, which yoga is part of it, Samkhya is part of it. There's a school of logic, a school of alchemy and such. So just imagine, all through these hundreds of years, there are so many different philosophical and belief systems that are all churning and going on in India right now. Some of them are monotheistic, some are theistic, pantheistic, dualism, non-dualism, based on nature. And so we go on and on. Here's much more detail about it. Ayurveda is happening now. It's in the medieval period that we have the first emergence of Tantra. And what I really like here, and what it says in this article, is that it seeks to channel the divine energy of the macrocosm into the human microcosm. So remember, even yesterday we spoke about that we can look at Tantra and the worship of the 10 wisdom goddesses from a very big universal point of view of how creation was started and what's all the interrelationships in the universe, and all that big picture is being mirrored in the intimate experience that humanity has. And Tantra was trying to merge those two and show us how we can benefit from that knowledge. Let me go on. Here it is. Then by 800 to 1200, we have the major growth of Tantra. So here it is. It's, I'm just paraphrasing. It represents a determined attempt at reconciling the apparent points of conflict among all these different schools of philosophy that came before it. And it's trying to synthesize dualism and non-dualism, trying to figure out how that all works together, and pulling in Mother Divine nature and the importance of Mother Divine to that spiritual journey of achieving self-awareness or oneness with the Supreme Consciousness. So when you have time, go back and read this article. It's quite detailed, and it also opens up a lot of different windows of where you can go with your studies. I see there are, oh no, I guess I thought it was a question. All right, I also want to share another screenshot. Oh, sorry, I'm going to get it. Talk amongst yourselves while I get this. I thought I had it all set up. But this is a very interesting YouTube now of all 10 of our wisdom goddesses. All right, here we are. So let me see if this is going to work. Let me know if you can hear the sound.
Dasha means 10. Maha means great. Vidya means wisdom.
Dash Mahavidyas are a group of 10
Karen, did you hear any sound?
Yeah, we could hear sound, but we couldn't see your screen as far as I could tell.
Okay, 1 second. Let me get it one more time.
Are these the videos that you shared at the very beginning with the emails? Because I really enjoyed those.
Yes, that's what I was trying to get. All right, I'm sorry, everybody. Share screen. It's up. Sound. Yes. Okay, this should be it. All right, going.
Aspects of eternal superpower in Hinduism. Each Mahavidya is a form of the Divine Mother, from horrific goddess to the most beautiful and peaceful goddess. Sakta Hindu and Buddhist goddesses were combined to form this list of 10 Mahavidyas. Dashamahavadhyas are worshipped to seek all sorts of powers, like creation, motion, potential, expansion, control, birth, death, progression, salvation, etc.
Kali is the most important of the 10 Mahavidyas.
She is the ultimate form of Brahman, devourer of time. Sakta Hindu and Tantra sects additionally worship her as the ultimate reality. She is also seen as a divine protector and the one who gives moksha, or liberation.
She is often regarded as the power of Shiva and is closely associated with him in various Puranas.
Tara, the blue goddess who is a guide and protector, or who saves. She also offers the ultimate knowledge which gives salvation. That is why she is also known as Neel Saraswati.
Shodashi. Shodashi is also known as Tripura Sundari, the goddess who is beautiful in the three worlds. Tripura Sundari is represented as a 16-year-old girl.
She is also known as the goddess of wealth and beauty. She is believed to embody 16 types of desires. She is also known as the Tantric Parvati.
Mokshmokta Bhuvaneshwari.
The goddess is the world mother,
whose body is cosmos.
She is the ruler of the universe and source of creation.
Bhairavi.
She is the fearsome aspect of the divine power, who also represents Kundalini energy.
Chinnamasta,
the goddess who decapitated herself and who represents transformation.
Dhumavati,
the widow goddess, or the goddess of death.
Bogalamuki,
the goddess who paralyzes enemies.
Matangi,
the prime minister of
Lalita
in Srakula systems, a tantric form of Saraswati.
Kamala,
the lotus goddess,
a tantric form of Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth and abundance.
So that's a really fun graphic little video to give us another introduction of what we're studying and what we're exploring. It's in your Word document, so if you want to see that video again, you can. So let's look at Kali and Chinnamasta today. Let me share our screen again on this one. PowerPoint. I'm sorry, you guys. I actually did practice this so many times before I did this. Something's happening. I can't exit full screen. There we are. All right, so here is some of the videos that we're going to see today. The first one we just shared was the historic timeline, and again, it's here, but it will also be in it's also in your Word document. And then we're going to listen to the two different mantra chants, the long version for Goddess Kali and Goddess Chinnamasta. So let us take a little closer look at Goddess Kali. Kali in Sanskrit means time. So what we know about time is that it is eternal, and that time not only is the passage of time or the winds of change, but it's also the witness of that time. That's how we view life, actually, in a time continuum. So often Goddess Kali is called prana, which is the life force. I was doing some cross-referencing here, and this is all in your Word document. When you look at the sutras of Patanjali and you look at the third pada, the Vibhuti pada, he says that we mark time essentially by noting the changes. If no change is noticed, we cannot perceive the passage of time. and this is the important part, loosening the bonds of time brings us one step closer to the awareness of the eternal present. So Goddess Kali is the concept of the eternal present. He goes on to say that by practicing samyama on the 3 stages of evolution comes knowledge of past and future. Okay, we can say knowledge of past and future, that's the eternal present. Samyama, just to review, samyama is Kriya Yoga. What is Kriya Yoga? Tapas, Swadhyaya, Pranidhana, Ishvara. What are those things? Tapas in this situation is discipline practice. Swadhyaya, self-contemplation, a lot of self-studies of scriptures and listening to the words of wise people. Pranidhana Ishvara, the usual translation is surrender to God. I like to look at it more as a humbleness, an open heart to further expansion and of our own self-awareness. So when we practice that and contemplate on the 3 stages of evolution, okay, remember the 3 worlds, the 3 bodies, 3 levels of existence, 3 levels in your state of consciousness, waking, sleep, and deep sleep. If we contemplate on that using this practice of Kriya, we will evolve and transcend to understanding what eternal time means, the eternal present. He also goes on to say that by the practice of Kriya practice, that type of meditation, when we can focus on one moment in time, just one moment, and then another, and then another, and then another, we will develop our intellect, which we call the discriminative knowledge. And you see that phrase often throughout yoga literature and in the sutras. Because we know that one of the 8 limbs of yoga is dharana, which is one point focus, right? So that's a way to calm the thoughts in the mind and focus just on one thing, because how we perceive life around us truly is one point at a time. There's one point followed by another, followed by another, followed by another, and we can think of it in a time continuum when we're within this limited intellect and body that we are. And all meditation is focusing on one thing until there's a stream of consciousness of focusing on that one thing in different moments of time, and then transcending what time actually means. This is hard to talk about in just dualistic terms because that's the universe we live in. That's why we talk about transformation and transcendence. And so until you've transcended and felt that in your meditation, it's a little hard to describe. But this is what Kali is all about, is understanding time and what it means to you. It also is about your attachment to time, to the winds of change. So what does that mean? In all of yoga, and Kali is really representing a lot of the big yoga picture concept of meditation, is how do we loosen our bonds of attachment? How do we detach our emotions to objects and thoughts and concepts and emotions? How do we detach what we perceive through our mind, through the sense organs and the organs of action? We do this through meditation. And this is something, this concept I'm going to introduce to you is something that's very important in yoga, in meditation, and it is a theme that is running throughout the study of the goddesses. In Tantra, in yogic meditation, it's not that we are meditating to gain something. It's that we're meditating, that practice of meditation, to clear obstacles out of the way. Because Tantra, being very strongly non-dualistic, believes that you are the Purusha. You are the supreme consciousness. You are pure consciousness. But why don't you realize it? Because there's obstacles in your way. what are those obstacles? It's our perception. It's our perception of reality. So if we go back to our talk yesterday about Prakriti and Mother Divine, remember in Tantra, Purusha and Prakriti are one. They're different sides of the coin. However, in Prakriti, the way we see the manifestations of the world around us, there's a veil. It's like a smoky curtain. So we can't see that Prakriti is just Purusha. We can't see that. We can't perceive it. So that's why we have a yoga practice, to get rid of all these obstacles that are in our way. And what's in our way? Our perception of time, our attachment to the winds of change as we go through our life. So meditating upon Kali and contemplating all the different attributes that make up Kali will help us transform in our perceptions of time. All right, so Kali is also known as creation and destruction. What is she destroying? Your ego, right? That sense of being apart, of being separate, of being divided, because remember, Purusha is all. And so she helps us understand that we are part of one big consciousness. So she is destroying your ego and the attachment to pleasures and pain. If you read the sutras, in the first pada and the second pada, first and second chapters, it's really interesting because in the first chapter, Patanjali is telling us when we confuse what we see as being the supreme consciousness, that is ignorance, right? Because we do not see the supreme consciousness in a tree. We see it as a tree. That is our perception. Let's take it from a different angle. When I had talks with people who don't know if they want to take that first step onto a spiritual path. They don't know yet that they want to practice yoga and what a yoga practice actually means. They'll say, I don't want to give up being happy or sad. I want to be in touch with my feelings. It's really important. What yoga is saying, what Tantra is saying is, yes, it is really important. It is really important to be aware of the emotions and sensations that you are experiencing in this life. But we are asking you to take one step back and look at those emotions and your attachment, your attitude, your perception of them. And is that an obstacle for you to walk upon that spiritual path? And that's a unique judgment that everyone makes on their own and in different times and in different stages. So we're not talking about the emotion itself, we're talking about the attachment to the emotion. So creation and destruction. Very similar when we think of Kali as life and death. Here again, we're talking about Kali as prana. She's the life force, akin to Qi in Chinese and Eastern medicine thought. So as the life force, is she eternal or not? When we die, do we die? So then we need to really deconstruct how we define me. Am I this carbon unit or am I a consciousness? Remember, I also spoke the first day about yoga philosophy to see life in death and death in life. That's a wonderful thing to meditate upon, just that concept. Kali as being, as pure consciousness. When we are able to clear all the obstacles out of our way, we can clearly see Prakriti. We can clearly see Goddess Kali as a part of consciousness, as eternal time. She's also the element air, or the wind, Vayu. If we go back to the first diagram, the bhutas and the tanmatras, the very subtle potentiality of creation, this is where we see air, and vayu. And it becomes more important perhaps on your understanding if you're studying Ayurveda and the doshas too. Kali is kriya, is action. Okay, we spoke a lot about that and right in the beginning when we talked about her as time, and she is viewed as samyama or kriya yoga. Kali is beauty. This is really a very interesting concept also to contemplate. What is beauty in the passage of time? What is eternal? What is not eternal? What is permanent? What is not permanent? Kali is found at the heart chakra, which is where the element, the wind vayu, that's where it lives. The heart chakra in yoga and in Tantra is the abode of true knowledge, of the truths. Not the little truth or the little knowledge, but with a capital T and a capital K, the supreme consciousness. Her simple mantra is cream. So for meditation, you can have an image of Kali in front of you or in your mind's eye, and perhaps you want to use your mala beads, and you can simply go cream, 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 cream. Begin with Om, end with Om, and do it 108 times. Remember, the beauty of mantra japa, the repetition of these sounds, is that one, it is a type of one-point focus, right? So we're training our mind not to be distracted by other things. We're just going cream, cream, cream. Every single point of time is the eternal present that we are in, that we are experiencing 108 times. The other way to meditate upon Kali is the mantra Soham. And if you were with Terry last July, she gave a beautiful explanation of Soham. I am that I am. Another way is to meditate on just what is the concept of time. And what's really cool is that when you go to sleep, you're in that state of consciousness of sleep, which means we are no longer, our perceptions are no longer so strongly attached to the sense organs and the organs of action, right? Like when we're in the waking state of consciousness, like right now, I know I'm moving, I feel myself hitting my hand, but in a dream state, you are a little further back and those laws of nature don't apply. And then if you're in deep sleep, you're really, really distanced from your sense organs and organs of action. So it's a wonderful time to, in sleep, then to let go of everything and start every day as a brand new day. It's another eternal present moment of time. Another way to meditate upon Kali is on her yantra, and we're going to look at that at the second half of the workshop. So let's look at some particulars now in the symbolism of her form. So she's dark blue, and blue signifies in yoga eternal time and space. She has a garland of skulls. Those are all the different animals that are found in Mother Nature and Prakriti. The skulls also show how we can cut off our own ego with her help. The severed head, cutting off the ego, cutting off the head, cutting off our perceptions and our attachments to our separate identity. If you look, she has this skirt of human arms. That symbolizes cutting off and mastery of the sense organs and the organs of action. I like how they call it the head chopper. I don't know what the original Sanskrit translation is, but she has a head chopper to chop off the head, which she holds in the other hand. And the other two arms, other two hands, which I cannot see, I'm sorry. She has different gestures, mudras, that help to dispel fear, because fear of the unknown is a big obstacle when we start our spiritual path. So to dispel fear, she has mudras in her other two hands. Interesting. Let's talk about, she's standing on a corpse. So she is vibrantly alive. She's energy. Remember from yesterday, we said Mother Divine is the energy, the power of transformation and transcendence. So she's vibrant, full of energy. She's prana, and she's on an inert corpse. The corpse is Lord Shiva or Purusha, which is unmanifest. It is pure being. It is Sat. And so here we have side by side Purusha and Prakriti. And Purusha, in order to be manifested, needs this energy, this power of Kali. Now, if I can do it, what I'd like to do now is share with you the YouTube of her mantra, the long version of her mantra. Let me get to that. Oops, no, you stop. All right, this should be it.
हरीं दक्षिण कालिके क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं स्वाहा क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं दक्षिण कालिके क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं स्वाहा ॐ क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं दक्षिण कालिके क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं स्वाहा ॐ क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं दक्षिण कालिके क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं स्वाहा ॐ क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं दक्षिण कालिके क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं स्वाहा ॐ क्रीं 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 हुं हुं ह्रीं ह्रीं दक्षिण कालिके.
All right, so that YouTube is also in the Word document. So let's look at the translation of this mantra. I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. So her long mantra, I'm sorry that this came out kind of weird, but you can see it. Cream means action. Think of Kriya. Hum is the power to keep the negative vibrations away. So it's a sound vibration of wrath. Dakshini is the power of discernment or discrimination. So here we see that word again, discrimination. Kalika is another name for Kali. Swaha, that's the ending sound in a lot of mantras to just denote the sacredness of the mantra itself. So are there any questions or comments right now about Kali before we move on to Chinnamasta? I'll let you just unmute yourself. All
Hi,
right.
Corinne.
Yes, go ahead.
I just have to issue, and this is an issue that follows me a lot, particularly around yoga when it's been explained, is a couple of times you described transcendence as moving away from.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
For me, it is much more moving through. so that one goes through all of that and then comes back to. The only reason I have issue with this is because I have experienced teachings, organizations, classes where the students misunderstand that concept and start trying to destroy bits of themselves, which is stupid. I'm sorry, it's stupid. You have to go through and take it all with you. Just don't be attached to any of it. So that is only, that's a personal thing. I'm not saying anybody else should see it that way, but that is where I have a problem. And the other thing I would take issue with is your use of the word of destroying the ego. And if you look at your very own presentation, the word is not destroy, it is detach. And that's different. Destruction is not the same as detachment. Detachment does not deny the existence or the importance of the ego, or the value of the ego, or the relevance of the ego. It simply says, don't get attached to it, move away from it, go through it, come out the other side. So that for me is something that I want to make clear for myself, that is how I see that.
Yep. No, and that's really valuable. That's very, very valuable, Annette. So two things is that it's so interesting how each one of us interprets the semantics of different words, right? And what I find really interesting is that Tantra itself, and the way it is presented in what I'm reading translations of Sanskrit, uses incredibly powerful words like destroy, destruction, obliviation, dissolution, things like that. And there's a reasoning behind that. It could be cultural, it could be the time and the centuries. How we interpret it depends on on each one of us in the evolution of our own spiritual path. And so it's really nice to have you share how you view those words and what it means to you personally is very interesting. And it also, to me, shows this really open and expansiveness to listen, hear, analyze it, and then share with other people. And that's what this group is all about. So I really appreciate it. I also appreciate the fact that you brought up those words again about perception. Because it's something that has been echoed on and off, but it can get lost in those wrathful words of destruction. That it is, as you say, the ego is not your enemy. Your emotions are not your enemy. It is how we experience life. And we have to start with what we know. What do we know? We know this body. So we experience life through this body, but it's our perceptions of those experiences that we talk about transcendence. And the same thing when you brought up transcendence, is it going through, destroying, or going back to, or going inside? This is what I really love about, for me, yoga philosophy, whether we're talking Veda, Samkhya, Tantra, Kundalini, or whatever. There are so many ways to describe that path. And again, depending on where your level of existence is, what state of consciousness you're in, all that plays into what words you use and how you interpret those words. So we can say that the spiritual path in yoga is coming back to yourself. So you're going inward. It's not a journey outward, it's a journey inward. We can say it's a journey outward in terms of traveling through all these obstacles that are in our way to come back full circle to who we are. So there's a lot of different ways that we look at it. And as we study Tantra, which really does have rich imagery, rich vocabulary that evokes so many emotions, it's really nice to keep this open view and share, like you just did, so that we can all have different perspectives. I know when I first brought this up to Kieran, she brought up maybe 3 or 4 key elements for me that really opened my mind to different pathways of viewing this and then how to share it with you. So thank you so much in that. That was really good. I appreciate it. Anything else to share? Yeah, Terry.
I was just interested. Do we know, or is it known, what mudras Kali is using?
I will tell you, Terry, that I have not investigated it, but that would be really good to know. And I think it can be found out. I just have not gone into depth that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Azadeh, when we say that Kali is also creation, remember Kali is prana, she's life force. So she is creation in terms of the life force. When we pair her up and say Kali is creation and destruction, it's like being born again. You know, when we can transcend the limitations of this mind-body complex and be born again with that awareness that we are a pure consciousness, that is also another aspect of creation.
Can I also jump into that just with the concept of like yin and yang? Like, as I mentioned, I'll be drawing from like Taoist perspectives as I relate to this mostly. And so yin and yang, there, as with a lot of Eastern philosophy, there's a lot of tenets. And so one of the tenets of the yin yang theory is that they're interdependent. And so it's almost like what is meant by creation. It's like life is death is life is death. Like destruction is creation in a way. And it's completely impossible to have creation without the destruction. That's just kind of my perspective on it. I don't know if that's helpful or not, or if anyone resonates with that.
No, thank you for bringing that up, Kieran, because it's going to be discussed and explored when we look at yantras and the symbolism there too. Yoga really believes in cycles. And this is a cycle that never ends. It goes on and on and on. Creation, destruction, destruction. It never ends. And it's a circle, and it's space, and it's the void. It's the eternal present time that we see in Kali. So that's a concept that tantrics believe, that we go through the 4 yugas or the 4 cycles, and then we start all over again, over and over again. So as you said, Kieran, there's not a lot of differentiation between creation and destruction when we're talking about time in that point of view. I think it's interesting to stretch our mind to expand our definition of words different from what we culturally were educated in, on what is the definition of death or life or creation or destruction. And that helps us understand this and explore it a little bit more, I think.
Something else that I just wanted to add quickly to that, if anyone has heard of Joseph Campbell and the power of mythology, I think that's something that can be really helpful when interpreting all these different philosophies, because it's something that is age old and that humanity has been trying to do since the beginning of time, is make sense of the experience and use, I think, the words that last, whether it's biblical or sutras or otherwise, like the words that have come down to this generation are ones that have been able to carry that meaning, but it's still important to discuss them.
Yeah, Joseph Campbell is great. I'm sure some of you have read him already.
I just looked up Kali's mudra, and you stand erect and you interlace your fingers and point your index fingers like so. Kali's mudra.
Okay.
And Natalie had a question to everyone. She says, can't use video as I'm working on another deadline. But my question, how would you use Kali in daily life or life events to get courage, inspiration from? Or how would you use the concept of Kali to help people get through tough events in life?
Oh, lovely. Thank you, Sharon, for sharing that. All right, lovely ladies. Please.
Sorry, big mouth again. referring back to, and this is not intended as any form of criticism, it's what triggers in my mind.
Yes.
You talked about meditation on a single event, and you talked about the concept, which I loved, of the frames.
Mm-hmm.
That time is a selection of frames. And I found a practice that was very helpful for me to understand and to find a value in something like that, was actually not in looking at the frames, but in looking at the space between the frames. Mm-hmm. So if you can imagine a piece of film, there is always a little tiny gap. It's infinitesimal. But if you can focus on that and not on the frame itself, one way or the other, then the potential for the next moment of your life is infinite. If you're focused on the frame, then it is defined by the frame, mm-hmm. and it's restricted. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit mind exploding when you do it, or when you get that. It does tend to go boing, and everything goes just for that moment. And then you kind of come down, and you will reach for something that's familiar. You will reach for something, but you have a choice. In that moment, you have a choice.
Yep, and that's lovely. Yes, Annette, and there's some of the other goddesses too. I want to say it's Dhumavati, where their meditation technique is to look at the space between objects, is to look at the space between the inhale and the exhale, and to understand that space, that void right there. One point focus that, as I was describing it, is useful when we want to look, let's say, at a candle flame, and we want to see the subtle causal energy behind the flame, not just the obvious flame, but what is more subtle than that? The pranic level. What's more subtle than that? The causal level. What's more subtle than the causal level? Looking at it through Ahamkara and Mahat. So they're all different ways to view time. And like I said, it's wonderful to have all these different techniques in our toolbox that will work with different personalities and at different times in your life of how you want to view it. The Soham, that mantra is so great in terms of understanding also the breath and the spaces in between the breath and understanding who you are. Through mantra japa, you've got that time element again. So if I understood, Natalie was asking, okay, how are all these different qualities and attributes that are given to Kali when we're in a situation in life? Does that speak to us in any way to help us understand the situation, our perception of the situation, our attachment to what's going on in that situation? Does it give us any wisdom? Does anyone have anything they'd like to share?
Can I add something to that?
Mm-hmm.
I've become really sensitive to energies over the last couple of years and how powerful emotions are and they carry an energy, and how powerful words are and they carry an energy. I don't think this is probably not a new concept to any of you. But a thing that I've also started to learn is just with different archangels and different goddesses and gods and the energy that they bring, just simply calling that into your life helps to shift things for you. And so as you're going through this and you're talking about Kali and all of the incredible things that she represents, I can just imagine that in my morning prayers and my morning meditations that I call on her and say, please be with me, because I need some of your creative energy. I need some of your destructive energy, whatever the case may be. So that would be one way that I would probably work with each of these different goddesses as I'm learning about them, is how will their energy impact what I need right now? And literally calling upon them and saying, being with me. And just like I do with angels and with other beings that I believe are an energy source. So that's what I would leave. And then another thing I wanted to mention as the conversation, this is kind of going back a little bit, apologize for that. But I loved what you said, Annette, about, I just like the conversation and bringing that up instead of a destruction to maybe a transformation. And I like the word maybe resurrection, because I feel like in my spiritual journey, there's been multiple versions of me that die. And then she comes back as something stronger and more beautiful. And I learned so much from all of these different versions of me, but I also am learning that I need to embrace and love all of these different versions of me because she's within me. And so it's not just a complete death and turning away from, but it's an embracing as well.
No. Yep. Thank you, Leah, for sharing that. That's really lovely, and it also gets to. It reminded me of, as you say, it's not the image that we bring up, the power of thought and visualization in our own mind, and that divine vibration of sound that is attributed to each goddess. Kali is cream. So if we look at in Sanskrit what cream means, and we allow that vibration to enter our own energy field. And our energy field is nothing but vibrations, right? Your heart has a vibration, your liver, your skin, and then overall finding harmony with all that. That's how we can bring that power, as Leah was saying, into our lives. And it can be transformative, whether we're conscious of it or not. I hope that helps Natalie a little bit. Anything else that people wanted to share? Sharon, thank you so much, by the way, for the mudra. Thank you for looking it up right then and there. I appreciate that very much.
Layla, what you put in the chat, if you wouldn't mind saying more on that, I'm curious to hear more about what you mean.
So it was just looking at what Natalie had asked, really. How would you use Kali in daily life or life events to get courage? So I think, you know, in the past, I would have thought I could call on Kali because she symbolizes like courage, or that's what her, you know, kind of personality is. But is it possible that we might actually, rather than getting courage, get something that actually terrifies us so that we then develop courage? So seemingly get the opposite to what we think that we want.
Yeah.
That's tricky.
Well, I like that because that sounds a lot like my life experiences. And if you kind of act from the ego, you can start putting those judgments on it. Oh, this is an obstacle and this is the opposite of what I asked for. But at the same time, like you've said, it's exactly what's going to make you, or it's the time event that's going to cause you to find that courage in yourself, which is just one more aspect of all the experience that we're here to have, right? So developing courage, it can't just be granted to you. You have to go through it, right?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe it's something, they all exist within us anyway, but we just haven't revealed those layers of ourselves through doing work or needing to be courageous. But I think that it's very easy initially to like call on a goddess because you want to get that power that she holds, but you don't actually, you have to be careful what you're calling on.
That's like,
I'm sorry.
No.
A phrase that has been like coming into my life recently that you just made me think of is literally being broken open. I think that happens, like, I think that's being said in different traditions, different teachings. And like sometimes it's in reference to your heart, and not like heartbreak, but when you're being broken open. I think calling on the goddesses, actually, what I'm learning in reading about them is that I think they have the power to break us open in this really challenging way that moves us through it. So. Yeah.
They are a wonderful guide. Sorry, I just want to say, remember that Mother Divine is nurturing. She's a guide. She's transformational. She can be a bit harsh, but as using the words that Annette first said, you know, to get through it, situation. I mean, on a very less dramatic personal experience, for me, when I sit down in meditation, every time I get an itch or a distraction, I welcome it so much because it means that I lost my focus.
Mm.
It means that I lost that stream of consciousness where I was. And so I really welcome the intrusion. And so that's just a sort of benign thing. It's not, I'm not in a life situation where something horrible happened and I needed an intrusion of the goddess to get me back on track. But I'm thinking that's what you've said.
I do resonate very much with what, I hate that resonate, but it I remember this was probably about 25 years ago, and I was doing an extensive program of meditation, and I asked to have more patience, because I was under a lot of stress. I didn't have, so I asked for patience. And that morning I got into my car. The traffic lights were against me. I was late. Traffic lights were against me. So many people doing dumb shit on the road. Excuse me, ladies. And, I was caught, I was held, and I was getting steadily more and more frustrated and more anxious. And then all of a sudden I thought, hold on a minute. How on earth do you get more patience? You practice patience. How do you get the opportunity to practice patience? Right. And it was a huge insight at that moment in time. And it sort of made me feel differently about things like traffic lights. Anyway, sorry, just want to share.
So thank you for sharing that, Annette. Yeah, that's our life stories, right? We all have, it's so cool. We all have different light bulb going off in our heads in different situations that challenge us. I think I'm going to save Goddess Chinnamasta for next Saturday. She is a wonderful, intriguing goddess. She's the goddess of the Kundalini energy. So when we speak of Chinnamasta, she's not just cutting off her head and having 3 fountains of blood coming out of her. She's also about the energetic system of the nadis, the Sushumna channel, the chakras, the 3 granthis that we have in yoga. So that's quite a big topic, and I think we will explore that on Saturday. So it's almost 11 o'clock, but if I don't want to shut down the conversation, if anyone has anything else they wanted to share or ask, because Kali, like all the goddesses, is incredibly complex. It's not just as simple to say, Kali is the goddess of time, as we have seen. What is time? It's such a huge topic, and how we approach it. Again, with the verbiage that we use, with the imagery that we use, with the life experiences that we come from, it's beautifully rich and complex. All right, well, then I'm going to ask Karen. She recorded it, and I think she'll put it up to YouTube for us.
Okay, Terry was trying to ask a question.
Oh, Terry.
Yeah, and it just went. Sorry, I thought, oh, what was my question? Then you went on talking, and I thought, okay, I know what is it. Hold on. Kali. Oh, yes. In Kali, it talks about the element being air, vata. And so I was reading a little bit how it relates to our doshas, for instance. Does this affect, so for instance, like I am basically vata as a dosha type. How does this relate to the goddess Kali in a way? Are we more those qualities? Because I've certainly had to use a lot of courage my whole life. I'm wondering, does it attract those, manifest in your life, different circumstances of that energy and qualities of Kali if you are vata type? I just thought of that.
Okay, that's a question I have never contemplated, but just off the top of my head, I want to say this, Terry. That question deserves an answer on so many different levels, right? So I don't want to say it's so facile as to say there's a cause and effect of it, or that there's an attraction or a detraction of these energies. because on different levels of existence, whether it's this gross physical existence of humanity or more subtle, the answer gets more nuanced. So yes, Kali is Vata, but she's at the heart center of true knowledge. So if we're looking at it from that point of view, a little more subtle, that she is true knowledge, true discernment and discrimination. What does that mean in terms of your life experience? I don't know, but you know, what challenges did that bring? What winds of change? The time continuum, how has that played into your life experiences and your perceptions at any one time or looking back through your life?
It's an interesting thought process to think about it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
Carrie, I had a thought yesterday, if I can share, and I was just thinking about birth charts, and I was thinking about how in this life I have very bad luck when I break rules, and I've started to learn that maybe Kieran just shouldn't break rules then. She's gonna get caught. And so it seems to me like you're finding like some sort of, excuse the triggering word, but resonance with like that aspect of Kali. And so I think it's just cool to observe like, oh, you feel that alignment with that archetype. And I think that's just an invitation to keep working with it.
Yeah, it did draw me in that way. I was just reading, not even thinking about that. And I was looking at Kali, and then I thought Vata, and I was reading David Frawley's book, and I thought, interesting. I could just see these sort of, I don't know if I was drawn into it, but I definitely, as you say, resonated with it. So it'd be interesting probably for me personally to go deeper and see what meanings that might have for me and meditate upon it for sure.
I think what'll be interesting too is if you believe in karma and reincarnation, what karmic accounting is being manifested in this lifetime right now.
Woo, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how to be at peace with it. That's even harder.
How to be at peace with it. There we go.
Because
yeah, Barbara.
I'm starting to feel like from reading yesterday that she's going to be, that Kali is our quintessential modern day warrior woman. And is she the embodiment of all the other 9 goddesses rolled into one in today's world? Is that, you know, it's fascinating. And to see that we can each find a piece that resonates with us of her, whether it's Vata, whether it's the wind, whether it's her mudra. So is she quintessentially this modern day woman that's just rebirthed and rebirthed?
Yep. Thank you, Barbara. Yes. Yeah, I like what you just said, and also going back to Kieran, that I had to look up this word in the dictionary, archetype, when I first read it some years ago, and really wrapped my head about what that means. But thank you for bringing us back to that too, Kieran, the archetype, and then Barbara even extending it more, is that this is what Tantra means. This is what part of having a yoga practice means, is this questioning, analyzing, meditating, and going back and forth. It's that journey that we're taking all the time. And what's interesting too is that, of course, we're all here, so we're all open to being on the journey, taking the journey, or beginning the journey. But we all are starting in different places. And we will all fast forward in certain areas and slow back it in others. And so it's a very multi-layered journey.
And I just want to offer that even saying that we're all starting in different places kind of is at odds with the concept of Kali, right? Because no starting, no ending, right?
And oh God, it's gone out of my head now. The concept of journey and Tantra being non-dualistic. In a non-dualistic state, there can be no journey, because journey requires distance. Distance requires duality. And it's kind of, it's almost like you're standing on a seesaw. This was my visualization, a seesaw, and you step off it into duality, and then you go on this journey. And that's where I got into the thinking of, no, we're not moving back from anything, we're moving through it. That's the journey, but we come back to that point of balance, and that's creation, destruction. It's this seesaw concept, and you have the choice in that moment what direction you go off in. The other thought that I had was the journey starts with the first step. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. But you get to choose whether that step is to the north, to the south, to the east, to the west, or any one of 360 degrees in between. And that there is your choice, and there is a journey, and it'll be different, and you'll come back.
Mm-hmm.
And there'll be millions of journeys in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
I love that you mentioned seesaw, because I was having a conversation with my roommate recently, and we were talking about the things that bring us to presence. And I think presence is probably exactly what you're saying. Creation, destruction is what is. And so we were talking about the fulcrum, say, like on a seesaw. And so for her, I was saying, hey, I really admire how like you turned that bad situation into a good situation. And she said, well, gratitude is a really easy way for me to pivot. And so for her at that moment, the fulcrum of that seesaw is gratitude. And I think in learning the goddess, we're learning different ways to pivot. Is it what part of the goddess, of the archetype, is it going to be that brings us back?
Yeah, okay. I'm not going to use that. I should just go this, and everybody can hear the word resonate.
Anonymous.
I finally refuse to keep saying it. I'm too old. Too old.
All right. Well, shall we close our session and share an Om together, ladies?
Yes.
All right. Let's bring our hands to heart center, the abode of Vayu, the abode of Kali. Take a breath in. Shanti, shanti, shanti.